Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about weaponizing mental illness. I know that my channel is dedicated to talking about chronic illness and anything related to chronic illness. I do consider mental illness a chronic condition and part of the chronic illness family. Especially if people have been diagnosed with something, something like bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, stuff like that. And a lot of chronic illness symptoms are also psychiatric. Anxiety, depression, um, uh, ADD-like symptoms. So, it kind of all goes in together. But there's some things going on currently right now in I want to say in pop culture with some big names, big celebrity names. And I'm seeing a disturbing trend that I think is probably going to continue to grow over time. And that is, and I mean, it's not anything new, but I feel like in the celebrity world, this is going to be happening in order to dismiss somebody's claims or concerns about something. And that is, weaponizing their mental illness, essentially dismissing people with a diagnosed condition and weaponizing their condition against them. And one of the biggest names that we all know and that this has happened to recently is Britney Spears. We know that she was put under a conservatorship for, what was it, like 15 years? It was really long. She had her kids taken away from her. She lost custody. And she's now out of that conservatorship. And now we're seeing some panic from the other side, some panic from her dad and from her father's children, because I think that there are some things that are going to come to light, and there are already things coming to light about her case. And another individual that has been making headlines this past week, they actually have both made headlines this past week, is Kanye West. And I'll get into where I'm going with this. So one of the things that people who weaponize mental illness, essentially they're making the claim that a mental illness is basically incapacitating. If you have a mental illness, you can't do anything, right? You can't take care of your kids, you can't manage your money, you can't even, speak and communicate with the public. Everything that you say is just crazy talk. You're a head case, and nobody should believe anything you say. And that is incredibly untrue. And we're seeing that a lot with Britney Spears right now. I think they were successful. Her family was very successful in the beginning in getting people to dismiss Britney. We all believed it. We all believed that she was this crazy person. She locked herself in a bathroom with her son. And she shaved her head, and so we bought into it, and we were like, yeah, she's insane, and her kids need to be taken away from her. Keep in mind, she didn't hurt her kids. I don't know if there was even any risk to her children. She just shaved her own head and locked herself in a bathroom because she was scared that they were going to take her son. And this worked well for a while. And now that she is out of this conservatorship, we're hearing different things from her camp as far as what actually happened or what she was put through. And I'm seeing something similar with Kanye West, although I know there are a lot of people more people are against him than are against Britney Spears at this point. But Kanye West was diagnosed with bipolar disorder a few years ago, and ever since then, I have noticed and I have seen the comments on social media, and even when a news outlet writes something about him, they always qualify it with Kanye West, who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and so on. And I'm starting to see that a lot when, like I said, when these entertainment news outlets write something about him, they always have to mention that he was diagnosed with a mental health condition. And this is, this is a way to sort of disqualify someone, and to dismiss them, and to say, well, they have this mental health condition, they can't be trusted, they're not good people, they're evil, essentially. And what I want to clarify is that just because a person has a mental health condition doesn't make them a bad parent, doesn't make them an abusive parent. It can, they can be abusive. A person with mental health issues can be abusive and can be awful, but they're not, what would I say, they're not mutually exclusive. One doesn't necessarily mean the other. And people are trying to equate that, right? They have a mental illness, they're an incompetent parent, therefore they should have no say or even no contact with their own kids. So what happened basically, with Kanye West is that he took to Twitter this week. This was the last week of August. We just started September. He took to Twitter and started posting things about how he doesn't want his daughters to become to be in working as sex workers, or basically doing what his ex-wife did. And that he's showing concern for that, concern for where they're going to school. He wants them to go to his own, because he has his own private school that he established, a private Christian school. He wants them to go there. So he wants to have a say in their education and in their future. And basically what people are saying is, he's a lunatic, he's crazy, he has bipolar disorder, he's an abuser, he's abusing his ex-wife, and he's doing these horrible things to his daughters. People are saying that he's sexualizing his daughters. But it always comes up in the comments that he's mentally ill, he's crazy, he's bipolar, he can't be trusted. During this same week, because I believe earlier in the week, or at least within the same, I'm pretty sure it was within the same week, Britney Spears also came out on I believe on Instagram. She recorded a message that was, I think, 35 minutes or 45 minutes, something like that. And I actually heard the whole thing, speaking out about some things that happened during the conservatorship, things that were very confusing to her, the way that her family treated her, how she wasn't allowed to do certain things, yet she would see her family on vacation in Florida, having ice cream, and she wasn't even allowed to have a drink or go out with friends or something like that. And she recorded this whole thing. It's now on YouTube. You can listen to it on YouTube. And people were just like, she's coming out, she's telling the world everything that happened, and basically celebrating that Britney Spears is basically, now telling the world what actually happened during her conservatorship, and that she believes that she was abused. So you have these two people, both with diagnosed mental health conditions. And again, they're not saying Britney Spears, who is bipolar. They're not saying that. They're doing that with Kanye West and not doing that with Britney Spears. And Britney Spears is this hero and this champion for speaking out, and Kanye West is evil, right? And in both cases, their mental illness has been weaponized against them, with Britney by her family, and with Kanye West also by his family, but now by the public. And I really don't like this. And again, I'm not defending Kanye West, and I'm not defending his behavior, but I don't see a huge difference between what he's doing and what Britney Spears is doing. And he even said, I know people are going to think I'm crazy. You all think I'm crazy. And that's exactly it. He is very much saying exactly what people think of him, that he's a lunatic, and that he's not of sound mind, and he has no right to speak on his children and what, and he has no right to make any kinds of decisions about his children and his children's future. Now, I want to also make another point. His ex-wife was dating Pete Davidson. They're no longer dating. And Pete Davidson has been very open about suffering from borderline personality disorder, which is a mental illness. It's a very difficult to treat mental health condition. He is very successful. He's a successful comedian. He's been on Saturday Night Live for years. I mean, he's dated many high profile women. And nobody, when you see an article on him, or when he's brought up in an article of Kanye West, they don't say Pete Davidson, who suffers with borderline personality disorder, et cetera, et cetera. Britney Spears was still working throughout the conservatorship, making millions and millions of dollars for her family. Yet we were supposed to believe that she was so severely mentally ill that she could not care for her own kids or care for her own self or manage her own money. And now we're repeating history with Kanye West. And I think that was sort of the point of getting him that diagnosis, because I believe his ex-wife was the one that pushed him to get that diagnosis. He did not have that diagnosis prior to his marriage, or even, I believe, at the beginning of his marriage. That happened at the end. So I do see sort of the pieces of the puzzle kind of moving into place. And I do feel that there is probably going to be a risk of him losing custody of his children, or having a lot less custody or a lot less time with his kids, which would mean he really doesn't have a say as to what happens with his children. And a lot of people are, making the same claims, that he is just incompetent, that he can't care for his children, that he can't make decisions for his children, that he's doing these horrible things to his children. And I also want to mention, almost that he's exposing his children too much. But then again, they're on a TV show, right? They're on a TV show. They've been in paparazzi photos. We know what his kids look like. We know what all of his kids look like. They've been used and promoted by his in-laws for money. So it almost seems disingenuous to me that people are dismissing him, or saying that he's sexualizing his kids or overexposing his children, and that he's going to ruin his children's lives by speaking out like this, when his children are out there. His children are all over social media, all over TV. This I don't see how he's exposing them any more than his wife or his ex-wife. But again, the one difference between him and his ex-wife is that he has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which therefore makes everything that comes out of his mouth moot. It doesn't count, because he's crazy, right? Weaponizing mental illness is about control. And we saw that with Britney Spears, controlling her money, controlling her whereabouts, controlling everything. I think, in my opinion, I do think that there is a conspiracy behind it. I know that kind of sounds a little bit, out there, but I get the feeling that after she had her kids, maybe she wanted to take a break. She also talked about suffering from postpartum depression, which that episode she had could have been postpartum depression. She did say that. I believe she posted on social media that postpartum depression was really hard on her. And when she locked herself in the bathroom with her son was only a year old. So she was fresh off of this pregnancy. And I think her family seized that opportunity, that opportunity of her being unstable for maybe a short period of time, to take it to the next level and say, well, she's incompetent. She can't take care of her kids, and we need to do this, we need to take over. And in that way, they were able to, force her to continue working and making money for all of them, because her entire family, including her, her ex-husband, have profited off of her. And she may have even been thinking about not working, because she had these two young children. A lot of times women take a break from their careers to raise their kids. She definitely had the money to do that. And her family may not have taken well to that, because she's their cash cow. the reason I'm speaking about this is because I have been in a similar situation. Obviously, I am not wealthy, I don't have a lot of money, but I was at a relatively young age sort of labeled the head case of the family. I suffered from panic attacks as a kid. I now know that a lot of those panic attacks were from living in a stressful environment, um, you know, having less than perfect parents. And it was weaponized against me so that anything that I ever said, any complaint that I had about my health, feeling pain, not feeling well, or just any complaint in general, it was automatically dismissed and I was told it's all in your head. This was long before I was even diagnosed with a chronic illness and I started going to doctors. It was just me being a kid, dealing with the normal aches and pains of growing up, and then, of course, having an anxiety disorder because of my environment, and then just being told, it's all in your head, and basically nobody should believe you. So this is very, very personal to me. It really bothers me, and people can weaponize a chronic illness as well. The only difference, though, is that if you have a chronic illness, a physical illness, or a disability, or wheelchair bound, whatever, you can still be of sound mind. It's almost like a physical illness doesn't cloud your judgment. It can. I have spoken about that before, but people don't see a physical illness as something that can affect your mental health, whereas a mental illness automatically disqualifies you from being competent whatsoever about anything. And so that's why people always jump at the mental illness aspect, when they're trying to control someone or when they're trying to manipulate someone. And I don't, it can happen, like I said, it can happen with chronic illness and physical illness, but mental illness is the go-to when it comes to dismissing someone, because if you're not in your right mind, it's very easy for people to dismiss you and to convince other people to dismiss you. And the other thing too about a mental health diagnosis is that you don't really need any evidence, right? He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but we don't really know. We don't really know where the records are. You can't see it. There's no blood test to diagnose you with that. With physical illnesses, there are often, tests and blood work and things like that. And a mental illness is, people just say, oh, she has that, and that's that. And I think that's why mental illness is so often used and weaponized against people. And I've said it before, these are two people, Britney Spears and Kanye West, are two extremely successful people. Even with their mental illnesses, they're still bringing in millions of dollars. Kanye has a successful high-end clothing line. Britney is still, she just did a collaborated with Elton John, and they have diagnosed mental health conditions. So we can see with our own eyes, or we're observing that these people are still performing at a high level. We saw that throughout her conservatorship. They're bringing in billions of dollars. They are successful. They speak for themselves. I didn't see anything, the fact that Kanye West is speaking out against his ex-wife and her family, but he did speak and say, why do you have more of a say-so over my children than I do? Why do my in-laws have more of a say-so over my children than I do? That is a perfectly valid concern for a parent. And anybody that has children and anybody that has crazy in-laws, you know how difficult it can be to raise your children with the influence of people that won't relinquish control of their own kids and grandkids. Just because he posted it on social media, suddenly he's exposing his kids. And like I said, Britney Spears did the exact same thing. They both took to social media. Britney Spears actually said she was doing that because she had been offered millions of dollars to do an interview with Oprah and to, do that kind of thing. And she said, I want to speak for myself. She said, I don't need the money. She said, I don't need the money. I don't need any of that. And that, again, that sounds reasonable. That sounds coherent to me. that sounds real and honest. And I think that's the problem here, is that these two people are speaking honestly. They're angry, and I hear a lot of anger from both of them. They have been controlled, Britney Spears in particular, and she's finally like out of this control, this control that her family was exerting over her, and she's just like anxious to speak out and anxious to say something. And I feel like Kanye West is in a similar position where he's like, I don't like being told. And again, these are powerful, successful people that, you know, were in control of their empires, and now there's an aspect of their lives that they're not permitted to control. And for somebody like Kanye West, who's a huge success, like I said, fashion line, um, Grammy Awards, successful musician and producer, and to suddenly be told you have no say over your children, you can't even make decisions, you're a crazy person. I think that's difficult for him. It's difficult for him as someone who's been the boss a lot, to now be told you're not the boss and you have no say over your own kids. Sometimes we need to take a step back. You need to put aside the mental illness and ask yourself, these are parents. Are these reasonable requests? I don't see, these are common parenting, or co-parenting issues. Where are my children going to go to school at? What is in their future for them? What careers are they going to have? Are they going to be exposed, to a career that may not be that great for them, for their mental health, for their physical well-being? I felt that his concerns were valid, and I feel that Britney Spears' concerns were valid. Her ex-husband recently leaked a video of her yelling at her kids, and it was basically her telling her children to respect her, which is something that parents do. Parents lose their patience, but that's one thing, even my parents, everybody's parents, has always asked that their children respect them, especially if they're living under their roof. The only reason that we think these people are crazy, or that we think these people are unstable, is because we've been told they have a mental illness, or because they've been quote unquote diagnosed, which we don't really know the full extent of that diagnosis. So, I really hope that people start looking at these things a little bit differently. A lot of us have been called crazy. Doctors have weaponized mental illness against us and told us, you just go see a therapist. There's nothing wrong with you. Just go see a therapist. This is not a new trend. Weaponizing mental illness against people is not a new trend. Chronically ill people have been dealing with this forever. And mental illness is not a legit reason to dismiss anybody. And we can clearly see that in these two cases. But anyways, that's what I have for you guys today. This was something that I am very passionate about. I could talk for hours about it, but I will leave it I'll leave it here because this video is pretty long. So please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.